Oh, all right. Well, welcome back, team. Want to thank you all for paying attention and listening to some of the things we've had to say. We've uh, brought Nelson back. This is part two. We've got a bunch of series. I'm sure we could talk forever about life,
Yeah.
man, because he spent almost 20 years in the career. But I want to thank my subscribers and those folks out there. Like and subscribe to the channel, Gentleman Syndicate. But we're going to get back into it. So just to kind of recap from the first episode, man, we had kind of talked about mental health and some of those issues that has brought into our lives. And, after that interview, one of those things that kept popping in my mind, right, was, man, I've never thought about, having, bipolar disorder or anything like that, right? Never experienced that. And to hear you talk about it brought that thinking of, wow, men are not given excuses.
Right.
We're not given excuses. We're not given the opportunity to say, well, maybe something else is going on in, his life that has
Right.
added to him being the way he is. Do you get what I mean?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so that was the thing that I was thinking about a lot after that conversation, man. So, um, but
We
anyway, yeah,
even when you hear a guy talk about anxiety, I've talked about it before, and I've actually had somebody reach out to me and say, "Hey, you need to stop bitching. You need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and you need to just keep moving forward." Okay, first of all, let
yeah,
me say
yeah,
this:
yep,
each person is their own person. You may not understand what I'm going through. I may not understand what you're going through, but in today's society, we have to give each other a little bit of a break, a little bit of kindness, because the rest of the world isn't going to. The rest of the world is going to try to chew us up and spit us out and watch us fall. That's what they want to see us do
yeah,
because it's fun and exciting to them. However, when they're the ones falling, all they want is for somebody to reach down and pick them up and wipe them off and make things better. So we got to be real careful about the way we talk to one another, and we talk to even people that we don't necessarily know. You know, when it comes to the mental health aspect of it, nobody, even my own family, I was shunned by my own family. Now, granted, there was a lot of stuff that was going on that they didn't quite understand, but instead of reaching out and saying, "Hey, there's obviously something here that's wrong, that's bad, that's going on with you. We need to help get you the assistance you need to further put you into a better place, or we need to have you institutionalized." It wasn't that bad, but we need to get you, we need to get you the help that you need to be able to assist you and bring you back to where you need to be at. I didn't get that from a lot of my family and friends. It was all, fight or flight type of thing, and a lot of them chose to fight. They chose to flee, they chose to run from it, and not a whole lot of people hunkered down and tried to stick with me in it. And it was a very lonely situation because nobody wanted to, they just, they didn't want to, and I'm not going to say that they didn't care,
right,
but they chose not to stick with me. Huh, um there was a point when it got really, really bad when the diagnosis finally happened. And I had finally been diagnosed with the bipolar situation. And
right,
they finally said, "Hey, it's not just anxiety, it's not just depression, it's this. And these are the medications that are going to get you right." Finally, I was feeling elated. I just felt on cloud nine. I was so happy that I was finally getting the assistance that I needed. I was like, "This is great. I'm going to go back to my family. Everything's going to be cool. We're going to rebuild. It's going to be great." And I got done. I took my meds for the 10 days like they told me. Well, I took my meds further after that, but I'm saying they said, "Take your meds. You're going to stay here for 10 days." I was institutionalized at the time. I had I had gone to the military installation, told them I was having situations. They brought me in. They took me to Laurel Ridge, as we talked about before.
Right.
And yeah, San Antonio. And basically, that's where the diagnosis happened. And I was so happy with the diagnosis. I was like, finally, somebody cares. Somebody's listening to me. This is going to be great. They let me out. I drove home and I walked into an empty house. My wife had left.
Yeah. So,
and so here I was finally reaching out and getting the assistance that I had needed. And I had always been one of those people that said, hey, if I need help, I'm going to get the help that I need. Right. And this was just another situation of that. And I said, hey, I need to get help. I had told her on the phone, I said, hey, I'm going to go get help, get the assistance I need. And we had talked several times within that. And then I showed up to the house and they were gone.
Man, that's my situation, right? I've been divorced. It wasn't as abrupt, right? But right. I can understand when you said right earlier, you were like, hey, it felt like there was nobody that was in the fight with you, right? Like you were kind of just like the people that you thought were there weren't there. And right. I'm sure at some point there might have been some people that you never thought would have been there that were there.
Right.
And I've always said this to my girlfriend, because I bounce a lot of these ideas off of her, and she is always the one to kind of tell me if I'm crazy or if I'm, shooting for the stars, man, but I've always said the greatest multiplication in a man's life is subtraction. When everything is just boom, you're at the bottom, bro. Right. The people that you thought were there aren't there, but in reality, which I know we'll get into later on, it has a lot to do with faith and belief, but I totally get it, man. The greatest multiplication and thing for us as men tends to be that subtraction in our life when everything's at the bottom, nobody's there, figure it out, good luck, right? And guess what? The people
some people that want to hand you the anchor and see you hold on to it and fall even further. I've seen that, and I've had that happen in my life. And those people again eventually subtracted from my life, and which was much better. But hey, we're gonna pause for a second. We're gonna pause. They're walking.
So, you kind of said earlier, like, after you went to the hospital and we're finally kind of going up that positive path, you came home and your wife at the time was gone.
Right.
Like you came home to an empty house. How did that make you feel? Like, did that bring you down even lower than where you were before you left?
So what was funny is that they had told me when I was in treatment, they said, hey, the medications are going to make life much better. You're going to be on a much higher level. You're not going to be as down as what you've been before, because prior to the diagnosis I had, it was a year right at a year after I had been medically retired from the Air Force. And so I was lost, man. I was in such a bad spot, depression wise. I was at the lowest I had ever been. At that point, I was thinking again about suicide and going away and everything like that. And I just wanted it to all be done. So when I went into treatment and they said it was all going to be better, I was like, this is great. Life's going to be so much better. And then when I walked into the house, it's literally like, and it was such a weird scenario when things happen to you in your life that are like that. Things are going to happen that you're going to see that you remember over and over again that it's
Yeah.
stuff that's so pointless and doesn't make any sense. But from time to time, you will recur these, if that's a word, these things will occur again in your head. What I'm talking about is that it was a windy day, and I remember opening the door, and there was leaves that had not been. I had been gone for a week and hadn't been there to sweep off the leaves. And so leaves blew into the house, and I remember seeing them like a tumbleweed, just tumble throughout the house.
Mhm.
And it's almost like that sound, that sound happened
ominous.
throughout my house, and everything was dark, and I saw these leaves coming across the room, and it's like this blanket of depression just covered me, and I was covered in that depression for the next 2 years. And it was a bad time, just a really, really bad time. I didn't like life. I didn't like me. I didn't like anything.
What year was that?
2017. It was August of 2017. As a matter of fact, August 10th of 2017. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Man, I'm sorry that you had to deal with that, right? That you had to, come home to that, man. Like,
Right.
bro, that's tough, man. Like, I think about my kids. They're in Germany now, and I'm not going to make this about my ex and her decision or, my issues
Please
with
do.
that.
This is us talking together, man. Let's both share.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is, man. But my feelings towards the whole issue with, being left alone to your own devices, when
Right.
your heart were your kids and are your kids, and that person, or y'all make a decision that rips that out. Man, that's a pain. That, dude, I caught shingles. I caught shingles. I was so mad, dude. So I could only imagine. And I was never suicidal, but I had a lot of anger, dude. And I can't say what I wanted to do on camera, but I was ready. I was ready to destroy the world. I've always said this too, right? Men destroy the world from around us, and women destroy the world from within. You get what I mean? Like a bad woman, a bad choice in the woman that we choose can be like a Trojan horse to us as men.
Right.
And for a woman, she could choose the wrong king, and that king could bring down a reign of pain and suffering that she's never experienced before because of what he does, right? And it goes both ways. But for us as men, that Trojan horse thing, man, I always think about it, man, hearing you, because that's what hurts us the most, is those kids that we love, man. So what with outside of we got the bipolar disorder, what are some things that some of the audience members can take away when you said this great amount of depression that you were feeling? What were some things that started making you think about suicide, like, more? What are some
Well, I had always been since if you backtrack to 15, when I was 15, I started thinking about suicide back then, and it's always been in my head. I've thought about it today.
Yeah.
Not doing it.
Okay, I was saying,
No, not doing it, but I'm talking about the suicidal ideations. You have tendencies and you have ideations. Ideations is just when you're thinking about it.
And tendency?
And tendency is when you are wanting to act out in some ways.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have always thought about it. It's always been there. I never quite understood why it was there until I was 30, when mom died by suicide. And then it all kind of made sense. But I've always had it in my head for some reason that it's always been there. Now, when the depression has gotten so low to where the ideations now become tendencies, that's a completely different situation. I had one where I tried to drown myself actually in Okinawa after Derek died.
Ooh,
Yeah.
man.
It was actually I want to say again in August of what was that, 2011.
11. Yeah. Derek
11. Yeah.
killed February 11th.
So there was that situation, and I had just gotten in trouble at the fire department for the blow up. So Derek had happened. That had happened. I had been diagnosed with PTSD. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that was happening at that time that made for a very, very bad situation. I was drinking uncontrollably. I mean, the fact that, the fact that I hid that at work was incredible, because here we are working 24-hour shifts, and I'm coming in 3 sheets to the wind and still working and still making things happen. It was,
you know what? Thinking back to, right, kind of what you're talking about. I remember me and you, we had a call. It was a young airman in the dorms who had called to, she was trying to commit suicide, so she took a bunch of pills.
okay.
You remember that call? It was me, you, I can't remember who else on that truck with me, but you. I mean, honestly, I didn't need you, right? Because I was a crew chief, but you took it upon yourself to go to that call. And I remember, I believe the first thing that you said, you got on your knees and you said, you know, I'm here for you. We're not going to let you die. Something to that effect. But it was such a strong, for me, it was like, I don't understand the world, right, of the suicide ideation, none of that. Right. So when you came in, and you know, I'm very strong and independent when it comes to the job, but when you came in as the AC, and I was like, this is routine for me, you know. But you took that extra step to like get on your knee, because you know she took pills, whatever, tried to do it. So like it would have taken a while, but it was really a cry for help. So her taking those pills compared to you trying to drown yourself, what people don't understand about that, right, is those are two far different things. You know what I mean? Right. Like when somebody really wants to do it, there's two things that happens. They either do it or they fail at trying it. True. Somebody who's looking for help, they're going to try it and attempt it and then like leave little nuggets. You know what I'm saying? Like nobody knew. I didn't know. Nobody knew. You were my boss. You know what I'm saying? You were my boss. Nobody knew that you were going through that stuff. I mean, after Derek, which that's a whole, I was messed up. But after Derek, we were all zombies, man. I never stopped working. I was still at the station where he was killed, basically. That whole thing, we were all just zombies, man. You know? Right. So I remember that call and being like, whoa. You know, I was like, whoa, that was a little bit much from my end. And so what was going through your mind when all that was happening? Because I'm sure that was,
what's funny is that I didn't remember that call until you just spoke about it. So that had completely left my mind all these years, that I had completely forgotten about it. And again, it's 2011, so I didn't remember at all. But there's something about suicide, and that's why we have SAS. That's why we have Survivors Against Suicide, is to reach out and to tell somebody, look, you're not alone. I know what you're going through. I know what you've seen, or I may not know what you've seen and what you're personally dealing with, but I know the effects and the way that it feels. And trust me, you do not want to go down this road. And that's basically, I just took a knee and was very open with her. And now I can remember the whole scenario. It's really crazy. And you're right. I remember even calling you on the radio and said, Chief Two's rolling with you.
Yeah, rolling. Yeah, I think that was the exact word. I'm rolling with
Yeah.
you. I think that was almost the exact word.
She was rolling with you. And I remember you walked up to me afterwards, and I was like, I'm just here. You're the crew chief. I wasn't trying to take over. I wasn't trying to take your play or anything like that. I was just like, hey, this is your show.
Bro.
I'm just watching. Yeah.
Dog, I'm getting goosebumps, man, because I remember you say that now because like now that you say that part, right? It makes sense when I remember it, right? Because whenever we remember stuff, we don't remember it. But I remember, doing my thing, right? I'm pin man. I'm taking notes, making sure we're doing all our procedures. And you come in almost like you unsheath, right? Like it's like you took off your badge and you became human to her,
right?
Like somebody that gave her hope, because like that's what it is, man. Like, and we don't know what happened to her later on, right? We just our job is to be a bridge, man. But yeah, dude, I remember that.
People, I don't know. I'm not going to say that it was mental illness on her part. I don't know if it was a cry of help. I don't know if it was something that I have no clue. It's been so many years. But all I can say is that for some reason, and I never really understood it. It's starting to make a lot of sense now, but I never understood why God put me in certain scenarios and in certain afflictions, so to speak, as what I've had over the years with the mental health and mental illness and that type of stuff. On that moment, I saw her for somebody that was screaming, either I want it to end or I need assistance. And I was going to be the assistance that she needed at that point. And I saw you and I saw everybody else, and everybody was working with kids' gloves. Everybody was afraid to ask, hey, what's going on? Now, y'all were doing the exact right thing, because if I remember correctly, y'all were asking what medications, what did she take? Are they still in the room? If they are, we need to get them out of here. I mean, y'all handled everything exactly. Man, it's so weird how clear it is. How much
I remember her laying. I remember her laying on the floor. I remember, because our job, man, bro. I thought we was gonna talk about divorce and children. Here we are, man. But we're gonna keep going with it. Okay. But the one thing that people don't understand about our job is full of energy at the highest level. So what that means is, like, when I go on a call, I've been on a call, right, where this kid you can see where he tried to kill himself. He tried to wrap a belt around his neck. Boom, that broke. Then he broke some glass and then dug into his arm. Boom, right? And he's just like on both sides, like, I'm done. Called the cops, right? So we come out and I'm looking at this kid's letter, his suicide note. Our job when we get there, we're the first line of defense, or the first effects of feeling that energy. Like, I'm hit with the wave of despair. I'm hit with a wave of hopelessness. I'm hit with the wave of grief, doing, whatever we got to do, CPR on a baby that's, already passed, for the family type stuff, like that stuff. I'm gonna interrupt you real quick and say this. I have always said this of worst case scenario. Our job is to immediately think of worst case scenario, especially when we hear of somebody who did a self attempt or that type of stuff. Okay, what's happened? What do we have here? What did they possibly use? Okay, it's in Okinawa, so we know they didn't use a gun. So that's one thing we can't eliminate out. So we're taking that out of the equation. Okay, what did they do? Did they cut themselves? Okay, is the foreign object still in the area? If so, we need to make sure the foreign object is out of there. And our job as firefighters is, the first thing we're supposed to ask the police is, have you removed the knife from the glass or whatever? Have you removed it from the scenario? Because they're the ones supposed to do that. We're not supposed to be the ones that do that. Now, me personally, I wouldn't have a problem doing that, but that's what they're supposed to do. Is it's supposed to take anything that caused the issue out of the means or out of the area from doing that. Is it medications? What is it possibly?
We have to think about worst case scenario. And my wife, she gives me crap about it all the times. And she's like, you always think about worst case scenario, but
Man.
that's what we do. That's in everything in our lives. We always think about what's the worst case scenario. We have seen death. We know what it's like to go through a death situation. So we live in a worst case scenario situation. So anyway, I interrupted you. I apologize.
Oh no, you're good.
But I thought that would be something of interest to put there because it's all about worst case scenario. Our lives are worst case scenario. What's going to happen if she leaves me and I have to go on? What happens if we were talking about earlier, what happens if I walk in a door and I see the leaves fall across the floor again and that type of stuff, and I'm all by myself? What's the worst case scenario? What do I have to do to rebuild and go on with my life? And that's what we deal with every single day. So,
right.
Sorry.
Oh no, you're good, man. Hold up. So yeah, talking about those leaves becoming the tumbleweeds in our lives, right? Like, that ominous presence of emptiness and nobody around and nobody that cares, and the people that we thought we loved us it feels like they're out to hurt us, and our jobs dealing with other people that are having those thoughts, right, and trying to commit or successful in taking their own lives, in that energy transfer. What's up?
Sorry. You've talked about, this is something I'm going to talk about with you, and I don't know if you've thought about this yet or not.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? But you talked about when I came in and I took that knee and I sat down beside that young lady and started talking to her about, hey, what's your name? What's going on? What are you thinking? That type of stuff. That's what you're doing now. That's what you hunt. That's what you're doing now. You are the talking point that you've been through all this crap and you've been through all these situations, and now you know what it feels like, and now you're the one that's helping. You're the one that's putting the knee down and talking to the men that have gotten their asses kicked for all of these years.
Man.
And now you're the one building one another up. So don't think that I'm the only one who's done something like that. You're doing the exact same thing right now, talking into the screen.